Daniel Liszt, the son of the legendary Hungarian composer and virtuoso pianist Franz Liszt, is a figure whose life has largely been overshadowed by the immense fame of his father. Born on May 22, 1839, to Franz and his lover, Marie Diegold, Daniel's life was set against a backdrop of both grandeur and tragedy. While Franz Liszt's career soared to unimaginable heights, Daniel's life was fraught with health issues, emotional struggles, and the crushing weight of his father's legacy. His story, though often overshadowed by the Liszt name, reveals a portrait of a young man whose potential was unfulfilled, and whose early death left an indelible mark on the Liszt family. From the moment Daniel was born, he was thrust into a world of high expectations and intense pressure. His father was not just a famous pianist, but a larger-than-life figure in the world of classical music. Franz's musical prowess was unparalleled, and his celebrity status often kept him away from his family. His relationship with Marie Diegold, though passionate at first, was fraught with difficulties, leading to their eventual separation. Despite this, Franz remained involved in the lives of his children, but his absences were keenly felt, particularly by Daniel. Growing up, Daniel was often in the shadow of his father's towering genius. Franz's legendary status meant that his children were constantly under scrutiny, expected to live up to his extraordinary musical legacy. However, Daniel's life was anything but easy. He struggled with various health issues, some of which were exacerbated by the emotional strain of growing up in such a complex and demanding environment. The pressure of being the child of such a renowned figure, coupled with his own frail health, created a deeply challenging life for Daniel, one that was to be cut tragically short. There is little recorded about Daniel's early years, but it is clear that his life was shaped by the presence of a distant father. Franz, though caring in his own way, was often preoccupied with his musical career and his many romantic relationships. This created an emotional distance between him and his children, particularly Daniel. Franz's devotion to his work left little room for the nurturing of his family, and Daniel's health problems only deepened the sense of isolation he must have felt. Daniel's struggles were not just physical, they were emotional as well, as he grappled with the weight of his father's fame and the expectations that came with it. By the time Daniel reached adulthood, he was already battling significant health issues. His life was marred by illness, with tuberculosis being the primary affliction that would eventually claim his life. In the 19th century, tuberculosis was a widespread and deadly disease, often leading to a slow and painful death. Daniel, like many others at the time, suffered from its debilitating effects, which significantly limited his potential. He was often in and out of medical care, and his health would have been a constant source of concern for those around him. However, despite his illness, Daniel's potential as a musician or artist was still widely recognized, even if it remained unfulfilled due to his early demise. Daniel's death in 1859, at the age of just 20, was a devastating blow to his family. The loss of a child is a grief that transcends all others, and for Franz, the death of Daniel was a profound and heartbreaking event. Franz had already faced significant personal and professional challenges, but the death of his son brought a sense of finality to the emotional struggles that had plagued him for much of his life. The grief Franz felt over Daniel's death is often described as one of profound sorrow, yet there was also a sense of regret. Franz, in many ways, had been a distant father, too focused on his career and personal affairs to fully engage with the emotional needs of his children. Daniel's death marked a turning point in Franz's life, one that would lead him to retreat from the public eye and focus more on his personal spiritual journey. The cause of Daniel's death is widely attributed to tuberculosis, which was a common cause of death in the 19th century. However, the emotional and psychological toll of his life, marked by illness, isolation, and his strained relationship with his father, undoubtedly played a role in his early demise. Daniel's health had been fragile for many years, and the emotional toll of growing up in such an environment likely exacerbated his physical decline. In many ways, his life can be seen as a tragic reflection of the difficult balance between artistic greatness and personal fulfillment. Franz Liszt, despite his brilliance as a composer and performer, was not immune to the emotional costs of his own fame. The grief he experienced upon Daniel's death was a testament to the complexity of their father-son relationship. While Franz was not known for being an emotionally available father, the loss of Daniel seemed to shake him to his core. He withdrew from the public spotlight to some extent, retreating into a more contemplative and reflective phase of his life. This period of introspection led Franz to focus more on religious and philosophical matters, and he even began to take on more teaching roles, mentoring young musicians and seeking solace in the pursuit of spiritual enlightenment. Daniel's death also marked the end of a potential musical legacy that might have been born from his connection to his father. While Franz's music was celebrated worldwide, Daniel's untimely death cut short the possibility of him following in his father's footsteps. It is tragic to consider what Daniel might have achieved had he been given the time and the opportunity to fully develop his talents. But his life, though brief, serves as a poignant reminder of the fragility of life itself, even for those born into greatness. Today, Daniel Liszt is a largely forgotten figure in the broader narrative of Franz Liszt's life. His early death and the emotional toll it took on his family are often overshadowed by the monumental achievements of his father. However, Daniel's story remains an important chapter in the Liszt family history, a story of unrealized potential, emotional hardship, and the deep, lasting pain that comes with the loss of a child. In a sense, Daniel's life and death reflect the complexities of the human experience, even for those born into the most extraordinary of circumstances. His passing, though tragic, is a reminder of the fleeting nature of life and the often unpredictable course of fate. It is a story of promise unfulfilled, of a son whose life was cut short, but whose memory, though faded with time, remains a part of the larger story of one of classical music's greatest figures.